Hey, I'm Ron Drotos from keyboardimprov.com, and welcome to our Journey Through the Real Book, number 179, which is the great torch song In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning, written by David Mann and Bob Hilliard. It's from 1955, and in this whole series of jazz piano lessons, what we're trying to do is to learn jazz standards in a way that includes both the cultural and historical heritage of the tune and who's recorded it, and how we can draw from all that to really understand different approaches and make informed choices as to how we're going to play the tunes, and also to give you some idea of what you can do, and then I'll play the tune at some point. So 1955 is a fascinating time in American musical history, popular music history. The swing era had been finished earlier, mid to late 40s. And it's kind of a misnomer that we hear. It's inaccurate, this statement that we often hear that there was the swing era with jazz and that was popular music, like In the Mood, all that big band dancing and Duke Ellington and Benny Goodman. And then it went right to rock and roll in the early mid-50s, 1955, 56, 57, 58, with Elvis and Chuck Berry and all those. There was not a transitional period, there was actually a period in between. The swing era had sort of died out. The big bands couldn't afford to keep going in the early 50s. Count Basie disbanded, and then he got back together later on. But there was a period where jazz was not popular music. Swing music, it was still popular, but it wasn't like the hit songs. You'd have hit songs like How Much Is That Doggy in the Window, and also great songs, right? Like, Autumn Leaves, things like that. But not necessarily the most jazzy with the big bands and all the trumpets. Some of that, yes. But the big band era wasn't in its heyday anymore. And rock and roll hadn't really, at least in terms of the mainstream popularity, hadn't hit yet. Yes, it was kind of being developed in R&B and certain types of jazz that maybe emphasized more of the backbeat or riffs, riff-oriented jazz. Southwestern swing developed into rock and roll too, and the blues, of course. But there was this period where ballads were still popular, and those kind of little novelty songs like How Much Is That Doggy in the Window. So Frank Sinatra had been one of the biggest singer in the land. When he was with Tommy Dorsey, he had an early part of his career that we don't really listen to as much anymore. But check out Sinatra with Tommy Dorsey. It's different than that kind of swaggering guy, fly me to the moon, swinging and driving a big band. He would sort of float over the top, and he'd croon these ballads, and his voice was a little higher back then. And then in the early 50s, that part of his career was over. He was considered a has-been. Oh, he's not so popular anymore. Maybe his career will be over. And Sinatra did something which is very difficult to do. He reinvented himself. Yes, he was kind of like the Madonna of his day, the singer Madonna who's reinvented herself, right? Or Miles Davis later on. But Frank Sinatra did it big time. And then he became the Frank Sinatra we all think of. New York, New York, Fly Me to the Moon, My Way. And this is the song that was the beginning of that, In the Wee Small Hours. He recorded this, and, he could just pour out his feelings through a song like this. This is a torch song. It's a song of longing, of emotion. Most torch songs, I think, pretty much, are geared towards maybe interpretations by female singers. Cry Me a River, things like that. Black Coffee, but no reason why guys can't sing those, but they tend not to. And this is more of a guy's kind of song, although yes, women can do it too, right? So Sinatra, come back. And then rock and roll sort of coexisted with that. This lasted into the rock era, right? Okay, how are we going to play it on piano? Well, it's a ballad, right? And it helps to know some of the lyrics, and the title lyrics at the beginning. In the wee small hours of the morning. Right? It's sort of this melancholy kind of feel. So that doesn't mean that we can't do this as a samba in 7/8 time. I don't know. But it might not be the most satisfying rendition of the tune. So knowing something of the lyric can help us. Not limit us, it helps us. And then there's a clue here as to what we can do on the piano. So if you look at the first chord, C major 7, it has a B in it. And then it goes to C7, which has a B flat. Right? Down a half step. And then C6 goes down another half step. And then C plus, which is augmented. So you have this stepwise line through the harmonies built in. And if the melody's above that, it's an inner voice. Hear it? Very popular. My Funny Valentine has it. The Beatles use things like that. It's really beautiful to have a stepwise little melody. Keith Jarrett does this in his interpretations, right? Bill Evans, Brad Mehldau, Herbie Hancock, Claire Fisher, having these inner voices. It's very rich in texture. And then the clue is that since it's there, you can keep it going. And that's what Keith Jarrett has talked about, how you get these little melodies in the middle of the harmony going, middle part of the keyboard, and you don't really know where they're going, and then, okay, I can resolve there. You know, you don't have to plan it out. I made a big mistake. I think 20 years, I would just try to either plan them out too much, or if it wasn't working perfectly, I just stopped doing it. Now I realize it's about experimenting, just letting your thumb of your right hand or the thumb of the left hand or whatever, just move and try different things, especially when you're home practicing. You can do that, right? So I'm going to start here in the music on the D minor 7th as an intro. It's the last 4 bars before going through the first ending. I'll do that as an introduction, and I'm going to get some of that going. This chromatic movement, or sometimes diatonic stepwise, sort of see where it takes me. So informed by the lyrics, kind of melancholy and emotional, and some inner voice stepwise movement. See where it takes us today.